Hey folks, Max here, and I'm getting this one a little late today. There was something I failed to mention on the video with Andy Anchus, which is very important. I had talked about his friend Matt Irvin, the special effects genius from England, and I failed to mention why I had included him. He is the one that took the pictures of Andy outside the Aurora factory. He and Andy have had several modeling adventures together, and it dawned on me, and it was pointed out that I was talking about it without telling you guys why. And he's part of the story too, but mainly he took these photographs of Andy, and I want to make sure he got his credit for that. And we will talk to you guys later, and now on to our regular show.
That was very foolish, Mr. Bond. Well, morning, everybody. I was talking with Mike Mashat last night, and he mentioned that we grew up in different times when you'd let a 12-year-old play with an X-Acto knife. And about 10 minutes after we hung up, I was working on the swordfish, and not with the X-Acto knife, but with a little spike I have from a bent out like dentist drill. I drew blood. Trying to get some of the flash out of a little area, and probably should have used the X-Acto knife when I was drilling a little hole, because I'm putting it on floats, and you have to drill the holes for the floats. And but there's one area where one of the landing struts go that is also used by the landing gear, so it's just a little square cutout, so all it needed was a little flash poked out. And sure enough, blood. I was thinking about the stuff we played with as kids. I mean, first off, just letting an 8-year-old take his bicycle downtown these days, I never thought I'd see the day that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's great that kids wear helmets to ride bicycles now. If we had, maybe I'd have got through algebra without 3 tries. But the idea of, I look back on it even now, I'm kind of like 10-year-olds with toxic glue, toxic paint, toxic thinner, and a box of basically angled razor blades on sticks. What could go wrong? Then there were the firecrackers. I told you guys that I wondered if I could ever find that old Aurora Russian nuclear-powered bomber, which was actually the M50 Bounder. I just thought that was a cool kit, or the Hawk Beta 1. Like, oh, I'd grab that. And sure enough, an intact kit came up last night on eBay of the Aurora nuclear bomber. Guys asking, buy it now, $239. I learned just how bad I don't want it. There's no nostalgia to that kit. I never built it as a kid. I just thought it was cool. And that's the kind of thing, if anybody ever bothers to repop at a decent price, I'd probably grab a whole basket load of them. It'd be great for kit bashing. You think about some of the kits that were just really good for kit bashing. In other words, it's kind of hard to kit bash a Mustang because it has such a very specific look to it. It's so easily recognizable. Pretty much no matter what you do, people are going to recognize that's a Mustang. But then you got things like like the Bounder or the MiG-21 that are just even if they are recognized, they just look like something that would be great. I actually did kit bash a MiG-21 for a home movie when I was a kid, and it really looked like something you would expect to be flying in formation with TIE fighters. I think what I did was I clipped off the wingtips and folded them straight down, and took the horizontal stabilizers and put them on the wingtips and made them straight up. And this was done like in 71 or 72, so that was probably 10 years old. So this was way before Star Wars. So it had a hint of a TIE fighter-ish look. Of course, they had that long fuselage, but with that big spike and everything, it just had such a an aggressive, look to it, almost sinister. It was really easy to make it look like a spaceship. I probably did a few other things to it, but mind you, I was 10 years old, so. Speaking of science fiction kits, I'm sure somebody's made one, but I don't recall ever seeing a kit of Robbie the Robot from Forbidden Planet. I'm sure somebody's made them. I just don't seem to remember seeing one. That would be an interesting. I built the B9 robot and the one by Polar Lights, and it was or the Mobius was Mobius. I'm sorry, but a really good kit too. I probably don't live 3 hours away from the Winspurs who had started Mobius. They since sold it to Pegasus, but I probably should have tried to get in contact with Steve Winspur because I'm really curious how a guy working out of his house managed to build up that to get that whole thing going. I'd like to get the story on that. I mean, I profiled him a little bit, but I didn't have any information to go into any real detail. I think he started the whole thing with just one mold. So that's commitment. Anyway, now I have to go research, see if there was a Robbie the Robot kit. I know they made the C-57D. And if any of you guys ever saw the movie Serenity, some of you asked me, the trivia in that movie, because that movie's speckled with trivia. And yes, when they land on what was the name of the planet, Moriah, and the big up on the wall when they go through into one of the buildings, there's a crash ship that says C-57D, and yes, I instantly realized that was a nod to Forbidden Planet, to the spaceship at Forbidden Planet. No, one other thing, hardest question I've ever been asked. Mike Machat asked me before we signed off, what's your favorite airplane? And I usually fall back on the airplane I learned in, the Luscombe, the little two-seater, more for emotional reasons. It's a plane I learned in. My dad taught me to fly in it. But that has got to be the hardest question. That was what made me think of Robbie the Robot. You remember the scene where he gets conflicting data. Robbie shoot me with the laser, and he's got the safeties built in, the Asimovs. So his brain starts frying. When you ask him what's my favorite airplane, that's what happens. I'm like, we're gonna have to be more specific, dude. Fighter plane, what era? I'm gonna be like the Academy Awards. My favorite airplane built between 39 and 40, monoplane full metal in the United States with the fighter attack roll. That would be, that's a tough one. What's your favorite plane? Or I think we've gone down this rabbit hole before. Most of us list at least 5. Man, you're fighting classics like the B-17 and the Mustang. But although I was always a radial engine guy, Thunderbolt, Corsair, them little Ferrari planes are pretty and go fast, and they can turn on a dime, but one bullet in the wrong place and they're coming down. I can bring my jug back with 9 cylinders shot out. Plus the big boy never gets no love. And then of course you have that magnificently beautiful Spitfire for the 100-mile range it has or whatever, Well, hello, Pumpkin. Somebody wants to say hi. We'll hop on up here. Come on. No? Okay, just walk off. Show me your backside. Oh, God. XB-70 for beauty. Concorde for beauty. Spitfire for beauty. Mustang was a game changer. 262 for technology, pushing technology. Phantom for just looking like a bent-nosed barroom brawler. Although I will say this, and if I had to have only one airplane, and one of these days I need to build one. I've got a model one. I can't reach it because the camera's in the way. It's right there, but I have these little die-cast models on the table, and I think the F-16's a doll, but I'm an F-15 Eagle guy. I think the F-15. If somebody said you can only have one jet to make up your whole combat arm of Air Force, man, F-15 Echo. the E model Eagle. It's big like me. It's pretty like me. You know, high, low, fast, dogfight, bomb, recon, interdict, you name it, it can do it. It's one-stop shopping. You know, range, and what a bomb truck. But anyway, that's just me. Plus, I'm a little prejudiced because I've flown with a lot of F-15 Eagle guys, and man, to say they're confident, and I think justifiably, is an understatement. Great, now I got to go buy an F-15 Eagle. If I do an F-15 Eagle, I'm going to commit. I'm going to do it 1/32 scale. I built the 1/72, and I want to make an Eagle in the Florida Air National Guard colors to go with my Florida Air Guard F-106s and F-102s, and I really want to do an F-16 because the Florida Guard had the F-16 before they had the 15, and I was actually there at the open house when they changed over some years back, and a lot of the guys weren't real thrilled. They really liked their Vipers, and I sat in an F-16 sim, and I was like, not there, but at the Air Force Museum, and I was like, you know, fantastic layout, but good God, man, you get in that thing, especially as big as I am, like, where's the zipper? And it's a great airplane. I'm not knocking the F-16 for a second, but and it's very cost effective. And I would say probably one of the worst jet models ever built was that red, white, and blue F-16. That when they first came out, I was in the Army, I was in occupational therapy. I'd broken my legs in a parachute accident, so I didn't get to go to flight school after I'd already been selected for helicopters. But that's a long, sad story. And yes, my parachute did open, by the way. There was a collision with another jumper before we got to the ground. But the occupational therapy is free models. I was like, I can build all the models I want for free. The guy next to me had a row of cars from one end to the other. He was a car guy from one end to the other. And they even had paint and stuff. We didn't have any, we only had one size brush. We didn't have any, just the brush, the paints, the thinner, and the models. No X-Acto knife. I don't think we had any X-Acto knives or sandpaper. We might have had something. Anyway, so I just went down on my crutches, you know, both legs and casts. And well, I'll pick one. So just one at a time. You got to build it first, and then you can come get another one. Like, no stashes, no hoarding allowed, because you're on a hospital bed. So I built that F-16 in my hospital bed, and I did the worst job ever putting together the straightforward kit. But when I went to paint it, I just decided, well, I think it was molded in white plastic, and I'll just paint it up like the one on the box. And I didn't have any tape or anything to mask it off with. Just in, I was laying on. It looked horrible. I mean, it really, and it just looked bad. And I forget what happened to it. I probably gave it to some kid to go destroy. Here, kid, destroy this. I don't want the world to know I ever built it. What's the worst one you ever did? I'm going to put that on the list as my worst model, including my first one, the BTK Spitfire, because I was like 6 years old. And so, you know, you expect a 6-year-old to look terrible. What was the worst model you ever built? Well, dentist appointment, and hopefully going to make a couple of phone calls today, talk to some folks, and get a few things, just model stuff. You guys have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you at the evening show. I'm sure there's some F-16 lover out there that's just about to give me, just warm up the keypad down there, just, you know, how dare you, F-15's a bloody pterodactyl, you know. A joke we did share. F-15 pilots, F-16 pilots tease F-15 pilots about having a wing big enough to play tennis on, and F-15 pilots tease F-16 pilots about having an airplane they can carry on an outer wing pylon. One of them's a tennis court and the other one's ordnance. See you later.